Before we get into today's show, let me tell you about the latest deal from Mike Lindell, MyPillow. Once again, the big box stores have canceled their orders simply because they don't agree with Mike Lindell's politics. They don't like it because he supports President Trump. Well, he's going to pass that savings on to you. No more middleman. And boy, does he have some great deals on the Giza Dream sheets and the Cartel bed sheets. Listen to this. Giza Dream queen size, normally $139.98. Your wholesale price, $69.99 when you use promo code Joey. King size, only $79.99. The Cartel queen size, normally $89.98. Your wholesale price, $29.98 when you use promo code Joey. Just call 1-800-893-4059 or go to mypillow.com. Always use promo code Joey. Free shipping options available. This allotment's not going to last very long. When they're gone, they're gone. mypillow.com. Promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Welcome in on this Tuesday, when official charges against Charlie Kirk, suspected assassin, are formally unveiled. Sometime this week, they'll show whether prosecutors are able to seek the death penalty, as Utah Governor Spencer Cox has proposed repeatedly in recent days. We'll take a look at where we are today. President Donald Trump confirmed that U.S. military forces have carried out a second high-seas strike in as many weeks against Venezuelan drug traffickers, and the president is making it clear the cartels are officially on notice. After a special called board meeting at Clemson University, they fired one employee and stripped two professors of teaching duties over vicious Charlie Kirk comments. And I'll share with you an open letter from one Democrat to another about how the left has gone too far and is pushing the average American to the GOP.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
At some point this week, we are expecting to know exactly what the charges will be against Charlie Kirk's accused assassin. And the stakes could not be higher. Utah prosecutors are preparing to formally unveil charges against the 22-year-old. This man accused of gunning down my radio colleague and friend to many and conservative activists, someone who's really touched a lot of lives and made a difference. Charlie Kirk, as we've talked a lot in this past, not quite a week yet, still hard to process that this is happening. Utah prosecutors, again, are expected to seek the death penalty. That's certainly what the governor and many others, including President Donald Trump, have speculated that they should do. This young man is being held without bail in Utah County Jail. Investigators say he climbed onto the to a campus building about 200 yards from where Charlie Kirk was speaking, fired the fatal shot before fleeing to his home in southern Utah about 4 hours away. Preliminary booking charges already include aggravated murder, felony discharge of a firearm, and obstruction of justice. But it's that aggravated murder count that matters the most. Under Utah law, it's the only charge eligible for the death penalty, and Governor Spencer Cox has been calling for it repeatedly since the day of the assassination. Cox declared last Friday night, "We got him. Now justice must be done." Utah County Attorney Jeff Gray says prosecutors are being thorough and deliberate and could file their formal criminal information as early as today, actually. Once that happens, the public will get its first look at the official charges. To seek the death penalty, prosecutors must show an aggravating factor, something that elevates the killing beyond ordinary murder. Now, legal experts say the most likely aggravator would be the argument that firing into a crowded event from 200 yards away created a grave risk to bystanders, to many others, in addition to Charlie Kirk, who we believe was his target, of course. California defense attorney and Fox News contributor Joshua Ritter says that might be enough. He told Fox News they would have to argue to the jury that there was a crowd around him, he's shooting from 200 yards away, and that could have put others in danger. I mean, that's a pretty easy argument to make. If jurors agree, the death penalty is legally on the table. If not, the most Robinson could face on a regular murder conviction would be life in prison. What do you think? And I have to pause and think about this. This is a young man who also had a lot of life in front of him. Obviously, a troubled young man in a relationship with another troubled young man. And a little later in the show, we're going to talk about some of the new information that we have about his roommate, who we're told they had a romantic relationship, and his roommate was transitioning from a male to a female. And I got to believe that there's a correlation here, and there's been a lot of talk about this, and I just honestly haven't had time to dig in, but I plan to. But there's a correlation here between some of the mass shootings that we've seen, some of the families that have been just devastated by someone who is a self-described transgender. Now, the shooter was not, but the fact that he was in a relationship with a transgender, with a troubled young man, and his family says that both of these young men had changed a lot and had become very angry. So you got to believe that there's a connection there, right? Now, there's talk and speculation that there's this underground group of people who are encouraging these young, troubled young men, transgender men, to carry out violence. If there's someone that you disagree with, if there's someone like, in their mind, Charlie Kirk, who is hurting the cause, that maybe they're being encouraged to just to take up violence, to eliminate them. The authorities say that this young man, the shooter, is not cooperating. However, his roommate partner, love interest, is cooperating. So we'll see. There's a lot of details. There are a lot more questions to be asked than what we know right now, the answers that we have. But back to the death penalty. Under Utah law, if prosecutors plan to pursue the death penalty, they must file formal notice within 60 days of charging him. This young man could also face federal charges, which carry a separate path to capital punishment. And President Donald Trump has already said he hopes that this young man receives the death penalty if convicted. So you got the President of the United States, and you have the governor of the state in which he lived and carried out this horrible crime. I got to believe that we're going to see these prosecutors seek the death penalty. Love to get your take. Text me, email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. Leave me a message on the MyPillow message line. Just call 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639, and tell me what you think. By the way, when you go to MyPillow.com, be sure and use promo code Joey on everything you buy. You'll get a huge discount. Mike Lindell still has his special on the some of the wholesale prices on pillows, $19.98 for a standard MyPillow. For a limited time, you can still get the entire classic collection at wholesale prices when you use promo code Joey. Call 800-893-4059 or go to MyPillow.com. Get the queen size MyPillow for just $24.98, and you can also get a king size for only $29.98. Again, you got to use promo code Joey. Get the body pillow for $39.98 and the multi-use pillow. These multi-use pillows are great to have around for only $12.98 when you use promo code Joey. So go to MyPillow.com or call 800-893-4059, but also leave me a message on the MyPillow message line about whether you think this killer should get the death penalty. Last week in one of the first news conferences, Governor Cox, who, by the way, have you noticed how the governor has really taken the lead on things? We were talking about that just the other day. He, many times at these news conferences, he has stepped up. Even one night prior to last week, prior to them actually catching the suspected shooter, You had Cash Patel, Dan Bongino, all standing behind him, and the governor was doing all the speaking. Now, I have since learned that was sort of a decoy news conference because they were pretty close to catching the guy then, and they didn't want him to know that they were close to him. So they went on with a scheduled news conference. But the point is, the governor has really taken the lead on this. He has called Charlie Kirk's killing an act of political terrorism. And for many Americans watching this case unfold, the question now is not only who pulled the trigger, but whether the ultimate penalty will be imposed if he is found guilty. Will he get the death sentence? Will he get the appropriate sentence on this? Many think it should be the death penalty. Again, love to hear from you. Text me, email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. Let's be honest, those summer vacations and backyard barbecues added some extra pounds, right? But instead of feeling guilty or falling further behind, it's time to reset, drop the weight, and get back in control. The solution isn't a shot. Real lasting weight loss starts with your mind, not your mouth. At PhD Weight Loss, Dr. Ashley Lucas and her team help you uncover the real reasons behind your weight gain so that you can reprogram the way you think about food forever. PhD clients lose up to a third of their body weight without ever taking a drug. I know because I lost 33 pounds with PhD weight loss. Through real food, behavioral coaching, and proven science, your body can become a natural fat-burning machine. Why risk spending thousands on shots that strip away muscle, come with dangerous side effects, and leave most people regaining 60% of the weight within a year? With PhD, you'll activate your body's natural appetite control, burn fat safely, and stay in control. Even if you're already on Ozempic, PhD can help you transition off while still losing weight. Take the first step today. Call 864-644-1900 or visit myphdweightloss.com. This past not quite a week yet since last Wednesday when Charlie Kirk lost his life doing what he loved, doing what he felt was his calling, we have been just engulfed in this 24/7 news cycle. And we have sliced it, diced it, studied it, analyzed it, and it's still just hard to make it make sense, isn't it? It's also part of the conversation is how is this going to affect, if any, the future political landscape, and especially the 2026 midterm elections. And make no bones about it, this is a political topic. Yes, there's a crime involved, a very vicious crime of a young man being assassinated. But it's also going to have a political fallout, I think, for the left and for the Democrats, and they know it. An open letter was written by a guy. Actually, it's not even imported his name because I don't know it. So I'm not going to say his name. It was an open letter by a self-described moderate Democrat to his fellow Democrats. It's blunt, and it's aimed at one big idea, that this past week has radicalized tens of millions of otherwise non-political Americans, and that those folks are sprinting to the right because they blame the left for what they've seen. The writer says his liberal friends are oblivious to how much anger is building among the normal people, as he describes them, the normies. Regular moms and dads who aren't on Twitter, who don't necessarily keep up with political news, who talk football and concerts at the water cooler at work, who scroll Instagram just to look at photos of sports and other interests. Those people, he says, logged on this week and got furious. And in his words, they blame the left. He structures the letter around three moments he says push normal Americans over the edge. And I've got to say, I agree with him. Number one, a 23-year-old woman, young, blonde, the kind of daughter any parent can picture, was stabbed in the neck by a man who'd been released from jail over and over. To these viewers, this wasn't abstract criminal justice theory. It was failure in plain sight. Of course, we're talking about the young lady who lost her life on public transportation in Charlotte. Number two, 2 days later, millions watched the video of Charlie Kirk being murdered, assassinated, while speaking to college students. Some knew Charlie. Many of them did not. But the writer says average people across party lines watched a peaceful man bleed out and felt grief and a sense of moral outrage because of it. And then number 3, the third point. Then those same people opened Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and X or whatever and saw familiar faces. Teachers, nurses, administrators, some of their neighbors, celebrating the killing. Not just defending it, but cheering it on. Now, whether you agree with every detail or not, the letter insists that these are observable realities that punch through the political noise. In his telling, this is the moment apolitical Americans realize politics cares about them, especially when it comes to basic safety. He says they're now racing to the right, not inching, because they associate these tragedies with policies and cultural attitudes championed by moderate progressives, revolving door justice, no bail leniency, and a habit of labeling dissenters fascist. If you don't agree with them, they're fascists. He argues that when people saw a violent repeat offender on the street again, they didn't just see one criminal, they pictured the DA who won't prosecute those type of people, the city council that decriminalizes, the college bureaucrat who lectures about states and what they're doing to not support people who need public services. They remember their cop buddy who quit after being called a racist, and they've concluded that they've been sold a bill of goods. Now, the writer doesn't spare so-called moderates. He says even if you consider yourself center or left, your party supported the DAs, mayors, and policies that made this environment. And when radicals joke about punching Nazis and then a conservative activist ends up dead, regular people connect those dots. The charge is simple. You didn't police your own ranks, he says. Another striking piece, he says, average Americans, churchgoers, and twice-a-year attendees alike see the online celebration of murder and call it what it feels like, spiritual warfare. They're repulsed. They expect not just a generic condemnation of violence, but a specific denunciation of the people in their own movement who cheered this death, who celebrated this death. They're repulsed. They can't stomach it. They can't believe it happened. His words get a little salty here. He calls the left's replies BS, but the gist is this. Pointing to reported crime stats rings hollow to people who see chaos and believe victims don't bother reporting anymore. What about January 6th? Or what about Paul Pelosi? Comes across as deflection when in this moment people are grieving a public killing they just watched on their phones. Good point. Gun control talking points don't persuade when one killer used a knife and another used a common hunting rifle. Good point. Minimizing the celebrations is not that many people fails because everyone saw multiple examples in their own social media feeds. Crying cancel culture when people call for consequences misses the distinction he draws between opinions and cheering an actual murder, especially from taxpayer-funded professionals like college professors. He ends with a hard bottom line. His movement just gained millions of righteously angry new members, he says, talking about Turning Point USA and those who support Charlie Kirk or those who didn't know who Charlie Kirk was until last week. But now they've gone back. They've watched some YouTube videos. They see what this young man, his love of Christ, his love of people, his love of young people particularly, and they see that he's not this monster that the left has tried to paint him into being. He says that the millions of the righteously angry new members, they have a mandate to make sure that these crimes never happen again. If Democrats want a seat at the table, they must clean house, he says, and start disciplining their own. And again, he's right on that point as well. And this is why the Democrats are going to really suffer in the 2026 midterm elections. President Donald Trump confirmed yesterday that U.S. military forces have carried out a second high-seas strike against Venezuelan drug traffickers. And look, folks, President Trump's making it very clear. He's putting the cartels on notice. He spoke from the Oval Office. President Trump described the operation as targeting confirmed narco-terrorists from Venezuela transporting big bags of cocaine and fentanyl headed straight to the United States. He didn't warn them. He didn't wave them off. Just like he did a couple weeks ago, he destroyed the boat, blew it up. The president said 3 male terrorists were killed. These extremely violent drug trafficking cartels pose a threat to U.S. national security, and we are hunting them. That's a strong message. That's a message that these cartels haven't had in quite some time, if ever. They think they can come in their fast boats and they can sneak in through international waters and get to our shores. And in the past, they have. Because, the Biden administration, rather than confront them, just ignored them. That was another part of the open borders. And like the last time, a couple weeks ago, President Trump even released a dramatic video of the strike on True Social. It shows a boat floating in choppy Caribbean waters, and then, poof, just like that, in an instant, it's engulfed in flames after being hit by a U.S. missile. It's blown up, extinguished. The president said the strike took place in international waters and stressed that no American personnel were injured. He claimed the boat was packed with illegal narcotics bound for U.S. shores, and he said for the first time in years, the Caribbean has gone eerily quiet. Just like it's gotten a lot quieter at our southern border, right? He told reporters, we've noticed there are no ships in the ocean anymore. If I were a fisherman, I wouldn't even want to go fishing right now. There are literally no boats. This was a boat, and we were surprised to see it, he said. But he also made it clear, this won't stop at sea. He said they killed 300,000 people in our country last year. We're not letting it happen anymore. When they come by land, we're going to be stopping them the same way we stop the boats. Now, make no bones about it. That's a direct warning to Mexican cartels who traffic fentanyl and meth across the southern border. The president's sending a very clear signal. You are not welcome, and we're not going to ignore you. We're going to extinguish you. And it comes as the Trump administration has deployed at least 8 Navy warships and advanced F-35 fighter jets to the Caribbean as part of what the president is calling a new war on narco-terror. Narco-terror, that's the new buzzword. And those drug lords better sit up and take notice. Now, this latest strike comes just days after the U.S. put a $50 million bounty on Venezuelan dictator Maduro and carried out a first strike on September the 2nd, just a few weeks ago, that killed 11 suspected traffickers tied to the Tren de Aragua Cartel, a group the Trump administration has designated a foreign terrorist organization. He's declared war on them, as he should. We're going to put them out of business, or at least in the U.S. They want to take their business to another country. That's their business. But they're not coming to the U.S. unchallenged anymore. Venezuelan officials are disputing the U.S., the story, claiming that those killed weren't traffickers. Well, how do they know who they are? They seem to be sneaking around. They said the administration says the intelligence is airtight, and that forensic evidence from the wreckage proves the boat was hauling cocaine and fentanyl. I'm gonna put my trust in what President Trump says here and not what some Venezuelan official is saying, right? President Trump also revealed that Maduro's forces recently sent F-16 fighter jets buzzing dangerously close to a U.S. Navy destroyer in what the Pentagon described as a highly provocative move. Look, I have some advice to Mr. Maduro. You better not try to confront Donald Trump or you're going to find yourself on the losing end of this. Those F-16 fighter jets will find themselves sinking to the bottom of the Caribbean. President Trump has warned he's prepared to shoot down any military aircraft if they interfere with U.S. operations, and he'll do it. He proved it with these two boats. He was making a statement. Former Sinaloa cartel kingpin Margarito J. Flores Jr. told Fox and Friends over the weekend that President Trump's aggressive approach is already sending shockwaves through the cartel world. He said they're going after everyone. Doesn't matter if you're a president of a country or a drug trafficker, there's a lot of fearful drug traffickers. And that's the message we need to send to these folks. That's the message they need to understand. We're not going to mess around anymore. We're not going to warn you. We're not going to look the other way and hope you go away. We're going to destroy you. We're going to destroy the drugs that you're trying to bring into our country. We're going to destroy your runners. We're going to blow up the boats. We'll take the aircraft too if we have to. But don't think that you're going to be able to keep business as usual and import your death into our country. Destroy families, destroy communities, destroy young lives with fentanyl and methamphetamines. The president says his goal is very simple. Shut down the cartels, cut off the drug pipeline, save a lot of American lives. And I think he's serious about it, don't you? I think they better understand that he's serious about it as well. CDC data shows that nearly 80,000 Americans died of drug overdoses just this past year. Now, that was down from a Biden-era peak of more than 100,000. And Trump insists he's going to drive that number down even further. And I trust that he will. 80,000 Americans dying of drug overdoses. You cut off the supply, you're going to help save a lot of lives. Because if they can't get their hands on the cheap drugs to begin with, they're not going to be taking them. Trump said on Truth Social, be warned, in all caps. If you're transporting drugs that can kill Americans, we are hunting you. And he is a good hunter. He will hunt you down. He will destroy you. And thank goodness we have someone like him sitting in the Oval Office today. On the text line, Ray says, Joey, it's taken some time to deal with the death of Charlie Kirk. I understand your feeling, Ray. The biggest takeaway for me is that this man was the most blessed of our lifetime. I just watched a video of his sweet young daughter running to his arms with pure love. This is beyond price. However, nothing compares to being, as Charlie is now, in the presence of our Savior Jesus Christ. How wonderful his life here and beyond. We know where Charlie Kirk is. You're right, Ray. Appreciate your text message. Faye says, Joey, my church prayed for the Kirk family. And did you see the clip of the young woman who wants the entire Kirk family killed? I've seen lots of that hatred. She says, oh, Joey, what has happened to the brains and hearts of many of today's youth? If I'd ever made a statement like that, well, I would still be standing up eating at the mantle. Be safe and well. But, Faye, what you got to understand, too, is, yes, that they're spewing their hatred, but there are a lot more people, a lot more young people who Charlie has had a very positive influence, and they've learned about our government. They've learned about being politically involved. And most importantly, and Charlie would say this, they've learned about the love of Jesus Christ. And I've been encouraged because I've gotten a number of text messages, some of them personal, so I'm not going to share them. But so many of you have said, you know what? I've reevaluated my faith. I've reevaluated my relationship with Jesus Christ. Had one person write to say, Joey, I hadn't been to church in a long time, but I went to church on Sunday. Had some people say, Joey, we went to church. We're disappointed that our pastor did not talk about Charlie Kirk. We're looking for a new church. I get that. And I don't want to encourage anyone to leave your church. Maybe you just have a conversation with your pastor. But if it's not the right fit, then find one that is. We have some great churches who are preaching the word of Christ, some great men and women who are ministering to the needs of their church. So find the right church. Charlie would be so pleased to know that many people have turned back to Christ in this very rough time that we're experiencing right now. Your comments are welcome on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Furman Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Furman Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Furman Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Furman, Matthew Furman. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Furman Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Furman Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Furman Ford online at furmanford.com, furmanford.com. We talked yesterday about some professors over at Clemson and the Board of Trustees having a special called meeting yesterday. We now know what happened there. I'll share that with you in just a moment. First, I want to talk, though, quickly about some things that Dan Bongino, the number 2 man at the FBI, talked about on Fox last night. He dropped a bombshell about what happened to our friend Charlie Kirk. He says investigators now believe that Charlie's suspected killer may have been aided and abetted by an extended network. And this kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about this whole trans movement. This may not have been just one deranged lone wolf with a grudge. Bongino said that there were multiple warning signs that this young man gave off before he climbed onto that rooftop at Utah Valley University last Wednesday and pulled the trigger. Now, federal agents are looking into whether anyone helped him plan it, helped him pay for it, or even knew about it and stayed silent beforehand. This young man who allegedly shot Charlie from 200 yards away, cold-blooded, calculated, was ideologically motivated. And now we learn that he may have had ties to pro-trans online groups. I talked with you a bit yesterday about the sexualized furry communities, which I have no understanding about this whole furry community. The trans part is so mentally unstable to begin with, and you throw in this furry thing, and it really will push you over the edge. And just militant far-left circles that apparently he was part of a lot of these online platforms like Steam and Discord with these groups. One of the groups, Armed Queers SLC, went dark on Instagram just hours after Charlie was murdered, according to reports from the FBI and others. They just vanished. Poof. Why? That's what investigators are asking. And people don't suddenly just delete everything unless they've got something to hide. They're looking into that. And here's the chilling part. Mr. Bongino said the feds are even looking at people who were in the crowd that day, including that TikToker who just happened to be asking Charlie a question about trans shooters right at the moment the gun went off. Now, that was my first question. Was that just a coincidence? Maybe. I don't know. Or was it perfectly timed? Was the shooter on the roof waiting for that question to be asked? and then pulled the trigger at that moment. Bongino wouldn't say one way or the other, but he made it clear they're looking at everyone. I suspect they've already questioned that young man who raised that question at the time. And think about this. The shooter didn't just wake up one morning and randomly decide to do this. His own relatives told investigators they watched him change, that he got more political, more radical, more hateful, especially over the past year while living with his transgender boyfriend. I'm not quite sure how that works. Do you? I mean, it's one thing to have two gay men living together. But when you have two men living together and one of them is supposedly becoming a woman, I don't get that. A family member of the shooter's roommate, said that he had gotten a whole lot worse once he moved in with his partner, that they were part of these insular online gaming circles that constantly fed him hate and extremism. And that's a real cancer with a lot of young men these days, these online gaming things. They spend hours and hours in a dark room. According to FBI Director Kash Patel, they've even recovered text messages where the shooter bragged that he had an opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk and was going to do it because of his hatred for what Charlie stood for. There was even a handwritten note, now destroyed, but agents say they've got the evidence showing what it said. I have the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it. Now, people who saw that, what responsibility, what duty do they have to report that? If someone read that, I have the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and they didn't report it, aren't they responsible for Charlie Kirk's death as well? I mean, that's premeditation at the very least. It's an obsession. It's just pure evil. And it proves what we've been saying all along. This was not some random outburst of violence. This was an assassination of a conservative Christian leader carried out by someone who had been radicalized and emboldened by an extremist ideology. Now, here's the question. Did he do it alone? Or was it part of something bigger? Because Dan Bongino says they're issuing subpoenas, that they're tracing financials, they're pulling his digital footprint apart piece by piece. And if they find that anyone knew, anyone helped, anyone looked the other way, they're going to bring the full weight of the law down on them as well, as they should. They should, right? If you knew that this man was thinking of doing this, was planning to take another life, you had a responsibility to report it right away. You are complicit in that murder. And here's what makes it even more disturbing. We've seen this playbook before. The media pretends that these far-left militant groups are fringe, that they are recruiting young, angry, isolated men, feeding them radical ideology online and encouraging political violence. They call it anti-fascism. But what it really is fascism with a new mask. It's authoritarian, it's hateful, and it's turned out to be deadly. They don't debate people like Charlie. They try to silence them. And that's what they did, unfortunately. They didn't silence the movement. They just silenced the leader of that movement. When they can't silence someone, then they just try to destroy everything around him. They can't debate people like Charlie because he had the truth on his side. And for a lot of these people who are spewing their hate online, who just have absolutely no clue of who Charlie Kirk really was, I just simply have been responding to their comments with a link to a YouTube video of Charlie tackling a tough topic in his usual manner. So as this investigation unfolds, remember this. The same media that tried to paint Charlie Kirk as some dangerous radical now suddenly has nothing to say about the radical who killed him. They don't care about the radical who took a life. They ignore the hate-filled posts. They ignore the extremist groups. They ignore the indoctrination because it doesn't fit their narrative. But it's real, and it's happening. And it's killing people. It killed Charlie Kirk. I don't know if the FBI will find what they'll find in the coming weeks, but if this shooter did have help, if he is part of a wider network, then every single person who played a role in this assassination needs to be dragged into the light and held accountable.
That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Furman Ford text line 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code Joey. Order online at mypillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.